Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you. The morning was exceptionally clear over the small town of Elmswood, a place seldom marked on the larger maps, yet today it would witness an event written in neither its history nor expectation. As the townspeople went about their daily routines, a soft hum, barely audible, grew into a persistent whir as three sleek objects pierced the sky and descended onto the field beside the local school. Michael, a local craftsman and father, was fixing a fence outside the school playground when he first spotted the strange vessels. The sun glinted off their metallic surfaces, casting an almost divine glow around them. He wiped his brow, squinting against the light, as figures emerged from each craft. Unbelievable, he murmured to himself. The aliens, tall and clad in shimmering suits, approached the fence. Michael, cautious but intrigued, put down his tools and walked towards them. His heart thumped in his chest, not out of fear, but sheer curiosity. "Hello," he called out, waving one hand slightly. "Welcome to Elmswood." The lead alien, who introduced himself as a Rexon, nodded. His voice was soft but carried an odd melody. "Greetings, Michael. We are explorers, keen to understand more about your species. Why here?" "It's just a regular town." Rexon looked around, his gaze falling on the children playing energetically on the playground. "We observe young humans today. We wish to understand what your offspring gain from their play." Michael chuckled. "You've come a long way for something that might seem trivial. Every detail holds significance," Rexon replied, his eyes reflecting a genuine quest for knowledge. Curious onlookers began to gather, and among them was Dr. Jonas, the town's physician. He approached the group, extending a friendly hand to Rexon. "I'm Jonas. Mind if I join in? Any new medical insights from other worlds fascinate me." Rexon accepted his handshake, the gesture awkward but meaningful. "We have much to learn from each other, I believe." Together, the trio walked towards the playground, observing the children. Michael pointed out various games and explained the rules. "See that? It's called tag. The one who's it has to catch others. Helps with speed and agility," Michael explained. "And that over there," Dr. Jonas added, pointing to a group of children assembling a makeshift fort, "is about teamwork and strategy." Rexon was intently taking mental notes. "Fascinating. Our young are more restricted. Safety is paramount. So much is controlled." Michael nodded, understanding the concern. "We try to find a balance. A scraped knee teaches a lot about the world and themselves." Dr. Jonas laughed. "He's right. It's how they learn risk management in a way." Rexon looked back at the field, his expression unreadable. "And what of their emotional development?" "That's the heart of it," Michael said, his eyes on his daughter who was scaling a climbing frame. "They learn courage, joy, and yes, sometimes sadness. But most importantly, they learn about overcoming fear." The dialogue was interrupted by a child's joyful shout, successfully reaching the top of the frame. The parents and Rexon watched as the child raised her arms in triumph. "Like that," Michael pointed. "That's more than just play. It's a small victory in her world." Rexon nodded slowly, a spark of understanding lighting his eyes. "Indeed, much to consider here." As the sun began to dip below the horizon, the unexpected visit turned into an informal gathering, with Rexon, Michael, and Dr. Jonas discussing, debating, and learning from each other. What began as a day of simple chores and routines had transformed into the beginning of something much larger, not just for Michael or Elmswood, but perhaps for the very fabric of interstellar relations. The following day, the alien delegation, led by Rexon, was granted permission to observe more closely at the Elmswood Elementary School. Michael, acting as their informal guide and liaison, brought along his friend Lucas, a local school teacher who was equally fascinated by the visitors. As they walked through the school gates, Lucas shared a laugh with Michael. "Never thought I'd be showing aliens around school. Guess it's show and tell for grown-ups today." Michael smiled, adjusting his cap. "Just another day in Elmswood, huh?" They met Rexon and his team by the school playground, where children were already buzzing around, immersed in their games. The principal, Mr. Green, joined them, his demeanor a mix of pride and nervous excitement. "Welcome to our school, Erexon. We're honored to have you," Mr. Green said, extending a hand. "Thank you, Principal Green. We are eager to learn from your young learners," Erexon replied, shaking his hand. Lucas led the group towards a bench overlooking the playground. "Let's start simple. Dodgeball. Kids love it, and it teaches them quick reflexes and teamwork." On the field, 2 teams were assembled, and the game began in earnest. Children dodged, threw, and laughed, the excitement palpable. Erexon observed intently. "Is the objective not simply to avoid being hit?" Lucas nodded. "Yes, but it's also about protecting your teammates. You can catch the ball to eliminate the thrower. It's about strategy as much as agility." Michael pointed to a boy who was coordinating his team's efforts. "See how Tommy is directing his friends? Leadership isn't just taught in class." The aliens watched, fascinated by the dynamics of the game. Another member of Erexon's team, Zalora, questioned, "Do they not fear injury?" Mr. Green responded, "A little risk is essential. They learn to assess situations, which is crucial for their development." The conversation shifted as the bell rang for recess to end, and the group moved inside to observe a classroom setting. Here, children engaged in a group puzzle activity. Michael leaned over to Erexon as they watched a group work together on a complex puzzle. This teaches them problem-solving and patience. "Notice how they discuss and try different solutions." Erexon nodded, taking notes on a small device. "I see. Collaboration is key here." Lucas interjected, "And it's not just about the right answer. It's about how they get there. Sometimes, the discussion is more valuable than the solution." They moved to another classroom where a music lesson was underway. Children were trying out different instruments, the sounds ranging from harmonious to cacophonous. Lucas laughed softly. "Music might not seem like it, but it's another form of play. They learn sound patterns, rhythm, and the expression of emotions through different notes." Erexon, intrigued, watched a small boy struggle and then succeed in getting a clear note out of a flute. "Is this also considered a form of play?" "Absolutely," Mr. Green answered. "It's all about exploration and expression. They learn to express feelings in ways words can't always capture." As the school day ended, the alien delegation thanked the staff and students. Erexon turned to Michael, Lucas, and Mr. Green. "Your methods are intriguing. The balance of freedom and guidance is unlike anything we have on our world." Michael clasped Erexon's shoulder lightly. "Glad we could show you how we do things. There's a lot we can learn from each other." Lucas nodded in agreement. "Who knows? Maybe one day we'll send our kids to learn from you." The day closed with laughter and farewells, leaving a lasting impression on both the visitors and the hosts. It was clear that this exchange was just the beginning of a deeper understanding and perhaps a long-standing connection. The next day, Erexon and his team ventured further into the intricacies of human culture by attending a community game night organized by Michael at the local center. It was an evening meant to showcase strategic and board games, activities deeply valued in the town for their role in developing critical thinking in both adults and children. Michael greeted Erexon warmly as he entered the bustling hall filled with tables of players engaged in various games. "Glad you could make it, Erexon. Tonight's going to be interesting," he promised, leading the way to a table where a chess tournament was in progress. Erexon observed with keen interest as 2 children concentrated intensely on their game. "This game, chess you call it? It seems to require considerable foresight." Michael nodded, pulling over another chair for their companion. "It does. Teaches the kids about strategy, planning moves ahead, and learning from their mistakes. Each piece plays a critical role, much like in a community." Beside them, Lucas was setting up another game known as Settlers of Catan. "Erexon, you might find this interesting too. It's about resource management and negotiation." As people gathered around, Michael introduced Erexon to Greg, a local high school teacher and chess aficionado. Greg extended his hand, which Erexon shook cautiously. "Heard quite a bit about you folks. Mind if I show you some moves?" Erexon, intrigued, agreed, and they sat down at a vacant chessboard. Greg began explaining the rules and strategies involved in chess. Each type of piece moves differently. You have to think about not just your moves, but also your opponent's potential responses, The alien observed, then tentatively moved a pawn. Greg countered smoothly, guiding Erexon through the thought process behind each decision. Michael turned to another table where a group was playing Risk, a game of military strategy. This one's about tactical maneuvers and diplomacy, he explained to a member of Erexon's team, Zalora, who had followed them. Meanwhile, Lucas and a few teenagers were deep into a game of Catan. Lucas laughed heartily as a trade negotiation heated up. It's all about what you've got and what you can get. Teaches you a lot about human nature, doesn't it? Erexon, having observed several games, reflected on their implications. It's fascinating. Your games mirror many aspects of life: strategy, foresight, cooperation, competition, all wrapped in what you call play. Michael sat back, watching the interactions. We find that play is a powerful learning tool. It mirrors larger life lessons, but in a safe, controlled environment. As the evening progressed, the games became more intense and collaborative. Erexon continued his discussions with Greg, absorbing every detail on strategy and the subtleties of human interaction. Greg, placing a protective bishop move on the board, turned to Erexon. See, it's not just about winning. It's about how you play the game. How you set up your pieces, your community, if you will, can really define the outcome. Erexon nodded thoughtfully. There is wisdom in your play, much to ponder about its application to our own ways of teaching and interaction. The night wound down with laughter and friendly handshakes. Michael and Lucas stood with Erexon, looking over the hall, now quieting down. Hope you found our little game night enlightening, Michael said, gathering up chess pieces. More than enlightening, Erexon replied. It's given me a new perspective on the concept of play. Perhaps we've underestimated its value. Lucas chimed in. Maybe next time you can teach us one of your games. That, Erexon said, a glint of amusement in his eyes, is a splendid idea. As they left the community center, the cool night air seemed to buzz with the echoes of newfound understandings and the promise of future exchanges. The evening had not only been about playing games, but about bridging worlds, one move at a time. The evening air was brisk as Michael invited Erexon back to his home for a quieter, more personal discussion. Michael's modest house, nestled on the outskirts of Elmswood, was a place filled with warmth and mementos of family life. As they entered, Michael hung their coats and gestured towards the living room. Make yourself comfortable. Can I get you anything? Coffee, maybe? Coffee, yes. I've read about it, Erexon replied, his tone curious. While Michael prepared the coffee, Erexon wandered around the room, examining the various family photos and children's drawings pinned on the walls. The cozy atmosphere contrasted sharply with the stark functionality of his own living quarters back on his ship. Soon, Michael returned with 2 steaming cups and set them on the coffee table. It's a bit strong. Hope you like it. Taking a cautious sip, Erexon's eyes brightened. It's very revitalizing. Michael chuckled softly. It's a favorite here on Earth. Helps us through the day. They settled into a comfortable silence, sipping their coffee before Michael broached a more personal subject. You mentioned earlier about your children. How do they learn and play? Erexon set his cup down, his expression thoughtful. Our methods are very structured. Every moment of their day is planned to optimize learning and development. Spontaneous play is not encouraged. That sounds very efficient, Michael noted. But maybe there's something to be said for a bit of chaos in childhood. It teaches them how to think on their feet. Erexon considered this. I've noticed. Your children seem very adaptable. It's intriguing. The conversation drifted towards the concept of risk and safety in child-rearing. Michael shared stories of his daughter's adventures and misadventures, highlighting the lessons learned from each. My daughter, Emma, once climbed a tree higher than I was comfortable with. I was worried, but she learned her limits and abilities that day, Michael recounted, his voice tinged with a mix of pride and concern. Erexon listened intently. It seems that experiencing risk is integral to human development. It is, Michael agreed. It's how they learn about the world and themselves. The talk then shifted to Erexon's life and responsibilities. Michael asked, what's it like, leading your people through the stars? It's a heavy burden, Erexon admitted. Decisions must be precise. There's little room for error. Your world, with its unpredictability and freedoms, It's very different from ours. As the evening wore on, they delved deeper into philosophical discussions about leadership, freedom, and the nature of civilization. The warmth of the coffee and the room seemed to blur the lines between human and alien, as both found common ground in their experiences and challenges. Michael shared his experiences as a community organizer. It's about finding balance, giving people enough room to grow, but being there to guide them when needed. Erexon nodded thoughtfully. Balance. That seems to be a recurring theme with humanity. Perhaps something we can learn from. As the night came to an end, Erexon stood to leave. Thank you, Michael, for this evening. I've gained more than I expected. Your hospitality and your coffee are remarkable. Michael smiled, walking Erexon to the door. You're welcome back anytime, Erexon. There's still a lot we can share with each other. Erexon paused at the door, looking back at the cozy living room. Indeed, there is. The door closed softly behind Erexon, leaving Michael in the quiet of his home, reflecting on the evening. The exchange had gone beyond mere cultural curiosity to a genuine connection, a rare and valuable bridge between two very different worlds. As the week progressed, the bond between Michael and Erexon deepened, influenced by their numerous conversations and shared experiences. Invited once more into Michael's home, this time for a dinner that would bridge their worlds through taste and tales, Erexon was introduced to another dimension of human culture, cuisine. Michael had prepared a simple yet elegant meal, something he hoped would appeal to Erexon's alien palate. It's nothing fancy, Michael said as he laid the dishes on the table, just some classic earth flavors. Roast chicken, potatoes, and some vegetables from my garden. Erexon observed the arrangement with interest. The preparation of food for enjoyment is somewhat foreign to us. We eat for sustenance and health. Michael poured them both a glass of wine, explaining its significance in human dining. For us, it's about more than sustenance. It's about pleasure, sharing, and sometimes even celebration. As they began to eat, Erexon carefully tasted each dish, his expressions ranging from curiosity to delight. There's a complexity to your food that's unexpected. Glad for the positive response, Michael smiled. Good food can be like good conversation, full of surprises and deeper meanings. Their discussion moved beyond food, touching upon the emotions and memories associated with culinary traditions. Michael shared stories of family meals and holidays, each recipe carrying layers of family history and joy. Erexon, intrigued, compared this to his culture's more utilitarian approach to nutrition. Our meals are efficient, designed to maximize health benefits rather than emotional connections. Michael nodded, understanding the contrast. Maybe there's room for both. Food that's good for the body and the soul. The dinner continued in a similar vein, with both sharing aspects of their respective lives that went beyond their public duties. Michael spoke of his late wife and how cooking her recipes kept her memory alive for him and his daughter. It's a way to remember her, to keep part of her with us. Michael's voice softened with the mention. Erexon listened intently, his head tilting slightly. Memories and emotions are powerful for humans. You weave them into much of what you do. Yes, they drive us, haunt us, and inspire us, Michael admitted, pouring another glass of wine for both. What about you, Erexon? What drives you, besides duty? There was a pause, a rare moment of openness appearing on Erexon's usually reserved face. A desire to understand, perhaps, not just the universe's mechanics, but its essence, its unseen bonds. Encouraged by this candid admission, Michael pushed the conversation deeper into the night, exploring topics they had only skimmed before: fears, hopes, and the unseen forces that shape one's path. As the evening wound down, Erexon expressed his appreciation for the meal and the conversation. This evening has given me much to ponder. Your world, it's not just about survival, is it? It's about making life richer, fuller. Michael nodded, collecting the empty dishes. We try. Sometimes it's the small things, like a good meal or a deep conversation, that make all the difference. Erexon stood, ready to leave, but with a hesitant pause. Michael, may I return the favor? Perhaps you'd like to see some aspects of my world through our technology? I'd like that, Michael replied, genuinely pleased. It's been a lot of Earth talk these past days. Time to see more of the universe through your eyes. With a final smile, Erexon left into the night, the bond between them now more profound and nuanced, shaped by shared human experiences and the promise of new, alien ones just on the horizon. The opportunity for Michael to glimpse Erexon's world materialized quicker than expected. Erexon had invited Michael to a conference aboard his ship, orbiting Earth, where scholars from different parts of the galaxy shared knowledge and insights. It was a rare privilege, and Michael approached it with a mix of excitement and apprehension. As they ascended in a shuttle from Earth, Michael looked back at the receding planet with awe. "Never thought I'd see Earth from this far out. It's a perspective that changes you," Erexon noted, watching Earth's curvature grow. Once aboard, they navigated through corridors that shimmered with light and technology far beyond Earth's current capabilities. They arrived at a large auditorium filled with beings of various shapes and sizes, a tapestry of the galaxy's diversity. Michael was introduced as a special guest from Earth, a newly discovered world. The room filled with a murmur of interest as they took their seats. The conference began with discussions on technological advancements and ecological sustainability. Erexon, however, was slated to present on a topic close to their recent discussions: the educational value of play. Insights from Earth. As Erexon stood to speak, Michael felt a surge of pride. Erexon began, "Today, I share something unique from our newly acquainted neighbors, humans. Their approach to child development through what they call play offers not just recreation, but essential life lessons." The audience listened intently as Erexon detailed observations from Earth: children playing games of strategy like chess, simulations through video games, and the physical and mental challenges of sports. Michael watched as various delegates nodded, some taking notes, others whispering among themselves. The concept of play as a learning tool seemed to resonate, even with the more technologically oriented societies. After the presentation, a delegate from a water-based planet, Lurian, approached Michael and Erexon. "Fascinating presentation, Erexon." "And Michael, is it? Can you tell us how these playful methods impact your adult population?" Michael responded, "Well, I think it keeps us creative and flexible. Play doesn't stop with childhood in many cases. Adults play sports, games, engage in arts. All forms of play that continue to shape our thinking and relationships." Lurian seemed intrigued. "Interesting. We focus heavily on structured learning. Perhaps too heavily." The conversation sparked interest in several other delegates, who came forward with questions. One from a silicon-based life form asked, "Could these methods help in developing better team dynamics within our constructs?" Erexon replied, "That's exactly why we need to consider integrating these principles. The potential for enhanced teamwork and innovation is significant." The session ended with a panel discussion, where Michael was invited to speak about human educational systems. He explained the variety of educational paths available on Earth, emphasizing the role of choice and personal interest in developing diverse skill sets. As they left the conference hall, Michael thanked Erexon. "That was an eye-opener, not just for them, I think, but for me too. Seeing how other worlds learn and grow. There's so much we can take from this." Erexon nodded, "And much we can offer. Your world, Michael, is rich with untapped potential." Today was just the beginning. The day concluded with a tour of Erexon's ship. Michael was shown labs where technology was being developed that could one day benefit Earth, and cultural archives that held histories of thousands of planets. As they returned to Earth, the lights of the shuttle reflecting off Erexon's thoughtful face, Michael realized how much his world had expanded in just a few days. From the playgrounds of Elmswood to the high-tech halls of an alien ship, the journey had been unimaginable. "Thank you, Erexon, for this incredible opportunity," Michael said as they descended. "It is I who should thank you," Erexon replied. "Your insights have opened new paths for us as well." Back on Earth, as they parted ways, the bond of their unique friendship and the promise of future collaborations felt like a bright new star in the night sky. Weeks passed since Michael's trip aboard Erexon's ship, and the impact of their exchange began to ripple through both their worlds. On Earth, Michael had returned to his usual life, but the sense that something greater was unfolding kept stirring in his mind. His small town, Elmswood, had become a point of interest for academics, government officials, and curious citizens alike, eager to learn more about the alien visitors. Erexon's world, too, had not remained the same. His report from Earth had inspired debates on their home planet, particularly about how children were raised and educated. The rigid structure that governed much of their society was being questioned, and many saw potential in adopting aspects of human play as a means of fostering creativity and adaptability in their youth. One evening, after a particularly quiet day in the workshop, Michael received an unexpected call. Erexon's voice came through, steady and calm as usual, though there was a tone of urgency underneath. "Michael, I need to meet with you. Can I visit tomorrow?" Michael, surprised but curious, responded immediately, "Of course. What's going on?" "I'll explain when I get there," Erexon replied before the line went dead. The following day, Erexon arrived at Michael's house, his posture tense, an unusual sight for the normally composed alien. They sat down in the living room, and Michael poured them both coffee, noting the seriousness on Erexon's face. "There's been a shift in our leadership," Erexon began. "My report about your world's methods of play, education, and child development has caused quite a stir. Many of my colleagues were intrigued, but there's also opposition, particularly from those who believe that our structured way of life is essential for maintaining order." Michael took a sip of his coffee, leaning forward. "Sounds like they're afraid of change." "Precisely," Erexon nodded. "However, there's a growing movement on my planet that supports the idea of integrating human approaches into our society. But the opposition is strong. They fear that introducing what they consider chaos will weaken us." Michael frowned, tapping his finger on the coffee table. "It's not chaos. It's balance. Kids need structure, but they also need to learn through experience. By making mistakes and figuring things out on their own." Erexon leaned back, his expression softening as he thought. "That's exactly what I've been trying to convey. But some can't see beyond the structure we've lived in for so long. They're not used to the idea of uncertainty." Michael nodded slowly. "You know, Erexon, when I was young, I grew up in a pretty strict household. My father believed in rules and routines, said they were the key to success. But it wasn't until I started finding my own way, breaking a few of those rules, that I really started to grow." Erexon listened, absorbing Michael's words. "That's a similar fear we're facing now. Those in power think that allowing flexibility will lead to instability." Michael put down his cup, his voice firm but kind. "But they're missing the point. It's not about losing control. It's about building something stronger, teaching kids to think for themselves, to adapt when things don't go as planned. Life isn't always predictable, and neither should learning be." Erexon sighed softly. "I've brought this debate to the highest levels of our government. The leaders are divided, but there's hope that we can introduce a pilot program where our young ones are given more freedom to explore, like your children." Michael's eyes lit up. "That's a great start. Change doesn't happen overnight, but once they see the benefits, they'll come around." "There's another thing," Erexon added, his tone more tentative. "The government has proposed a cultural exchange program, one where children from our planet and yours can spend time learning from each other." Michael grinned, a spark of excitement in his eyes. "You're telling me we might get to have your kids here in Elmswood, playing with our kids?" Erexon nodded. "It's still in the early stages, but yes. Your town has been chosen as a potential location for this exchange. Our leaders believe it would be a controlled way to experiment with integrating our different approaches to education and child development." Michael leaned back in his chair, letting the news sink in. "That's incredible. Can you imagine the things both sides would learn? It's not just about play. It's about seeing the world through different eyes." Erexon smiled faintly. "That's what I've been trying to advocate for. The exchange could open new doors for both our species, beyond just education." Michael stood, pacing slightly, a mix of excitement and concern filling his voice. "We'll need to prepare the town, get the community involved. Elmswood is a small place, but people here are open-minded. They'll welcome the idea, especially if it's going to benefit the kids." Erexon nodded. "That's one of the reasons your town was selected. Your people's approach to education, family, and community aligns with what we hope to learn." The conversation turned to logistics, as Michael and Erexon discussed what this cultural exchange might look like. They talked about classrooms, playgrounds, and how to blend the two very different approaches to learning. By the time Erexon left that evening, the seeds of something extraordinary had been planted. What began as an alien curiosity about Earth's children playing with danger had evolved into a collaborative effort that could reshape the future of both worlds. Standing at his door, watching Erexon's ship rise silently into the night sky, Michael couldn't help but feel proud of what they had started together. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was full of possibility. A possibility that lay in the hands of the next generation, human and alien alike. As he closed the door behind him, Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose. The conversations he had shared with Erexon, the games, the lessons, it was all coming together. The future, however unpredictable, was now filled with potential that neither Earth nor Erexon's world had seen before. Several months had passed since the idea of a cultural exchange program between Earth and Erexon's planet was proposed. The small town of Elmswood had become a hub of activity and preparation, with Michael at the forefront of organizing and facilitating the integration of alien children into the community. On the first day of the exchange, the town square was buzzing with anticipation. Decorations adorned the streets, and local families gathered to welcome their new visitors. Michael stood beside Erexon, both of them watching as a shuttle descended slowly, landing softly on the outskirts of the park. "Here we go," Michael whispered, a mix of excitement and nerves in his voice. Erexon nodded, his gaze fixed on the opening shuttle doors. A historic day for both our peoples. As the doors slid open, a group of alien children stepped out, their eyes wide with curiosity, looking around at their new surroundings and the Earth children waiting to meet them. Behind them, a few adult supervisors from Erexon's planet descended, their demeanor cautious but hopeful. Michael clapped his hands together, gesturing for the Earth children to step forward. "Welcome, friends," he called out. "Let's show our new guests around." The Earth children, having been prepared for this day, approached with smiles and outstretched hands. They had learned a few simple phrases in the aliens' language, a sign of goodwill that didn't go unnoticed by Erexon. "Look at them," Michael said, turning to Erexon. "Kids don't see strangers, just new friends." "Indeed," Erexon replied, watching a small group begin to mingle. "Perhaps there's more we adults could learn from them." The day was filled with activities planned to foster interaction and learning. Michael and Erexon moved among the groups, observing and occasionally guiding the interactions. In one corner of the park, Earth children were teaching the game of tag, while alien children showed how to play a complex pattern-matching game from their world. Seeing this, Michael gestured broadly. "It feels like we're on the right track." "More than right," Erexon agreed. "It's inspiring." Later in the afternoon, they gathered everyone at the community center, where Michael had set up a presentation area. With the help of translators, the children shared what they had learned about each other's cultures. A human boy, no older than 10, stood up. "We learned that even if we look different or come from far away, we all like to play and learn." An alien girl followed, her voice clear and confident. "We have shared our games and our thoughts. I see now how your play teaches you much about life." The presentations ended with a shared meal, featuring dishes from both Earth and Erexon's planet. The atmosphere was lively, with laughter and chatter filling the room. As the event wound down, Michael and Erexon stepped aside for a quiet conversation. "This," Erexon said, gesturing around, "has exceeded my expectations." Michael nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It's a beginning, isn't it? Not just for them, but for all of us." "Indeed," Erexon replied. "Today, we have laid down a path, not just for knowledge exchange, but for building a future together. The seeds we've planted here will grow beyond what either of us could have imagined." Michael looked at the children, a mix of Earth and alien youths, laughing and playing together. "Today, I've seen a new world opening up right here in Elmswood. Who would have thought?" Erexon placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. "You did, my friend. From that first day in the playground, you saw the potential." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the joyous gathering, Michael felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The day the alien generals discovered how human children play with danger had sparked a transformation that went beyond games. It had begun to bridge worlds. "Here's to many more days like this," Michael said, raising an imaginary toast. Erexon raised his hand in response, his eyes bright. To many more. The children's laughter echoed in the background, a sweet sound of harmony and hope as the first stars of the evening began to twinkle above Elmswood.